Hello, and you are more than welcome back to Little Miss Drop Stitch. Last time I showed you my mega 8kg wool haul from Norway, February 2023. Okay, I went on the Annie and Carlos knitting cruise. It was magical. Okay, so that's what I showed you last time, and now I'm going to give you my 101, my hints and tips for wool shopping in Norway, because it is quite an experience. Okay, so maybe you're booked onto the next cruise and you're just getting excited and want to imagine what it's like. So here's my hints and tips. The first one is I call it wool shopping because that's what it is. You're rarely, if at all, going to find anything but 100% wool. Pretty much I found that the only time that I did was for sock yarn, which has your usually 25% nylon in it. But anything else, whether it's alpaca, wool, a blend of them, it's wool, okay? So if you're used to acrylic, or you love acrylic for whether you're vegan, or we all know there's people that whinge that wool itches, like every single type of wool, it's never just one, they can't wear any wool. So if you're one of those people, or you're buying for one of those people, Norway's not going to be the greatest time for you. Annie and Carlos did tell an anecdote actually that on one previous cruise there was a lady that for whatever reason she couldn't use wool, and they searched every single shop in Norway pretty much, and they could not find her any acrylic to use in the kits, the holiday kits. Won't spoil it too much, I'll just say that about it. And they just couldn't find any, so they had to go in their own stash, and I think they ended up giving her some yak. In the end, I think it was just sheep she couldn't use for whatever reason. So yeah, you pretty much can't, and I just love that, especially, in the UK, you either don't see as much or you do and it's too expensive, and we'll talk about costs in a little bit. But yeah, just bear that in mind as well. You might either be having a field day if you want the wool, or if you want acrylic, I'll spoil it now, saves you running around all the shops. You ain't going to find any. Okay, but yeah, I just think that's delightful. And it just makes my heart sing with the kind of, biodegradability and the sustainability of using wool over, well, essentially plastics and acrylic. So yeah, that made me happy. The colours of the wool yarn, it's interesting, and it's not what I expected. Okay, so I didn't see any variegated, don't think, and they do, it's not just all Norwegian. There was Peruvian or Peruvian spun, and Rowan, things like that. So it wasn't that it was just Norwegian, but I didn't see any variegated. And when I say variegated, imagine, acrylic yarns that are like, 10 centimetres of green, 10 centimetres of fluorescent pink, or whatever. Or I'm thinking the West Yorkshire Spinners sock yarns, where, the Fur Isle type sock yarns, or Actually, I have this at the side of me. This is an Ironing Carlos design, actually. That's what I mean when I say variegated. Didn't see any of that. No, don't recall it. What I did see was solid colours, and I mean like solid colours. I didn't expect it. It's just like cobalts and luminous turquoises, really strong sunshine oranges and yellows. So yeah, I thought that was really interesting. There was also a good selection of kind of mottled marley colours. Let me see if I've got one to show you. Here we go. So this is the Hildvåg Tinder wool, and yeah, that's kind of like a mottled marley. It's got pink, and then pink with like a very small amount of black fibre mixed with it. And tweedy, yeah, there's tweedy there. They also did like these where I still don't know what it's called. Twisted? I don't know, because it's not variegated, it's not tweed. But you know what I mean, when it's twisted with like a very much different other colour. Okay, so that's blue and light blue. We've got green and cream. So that's what I saw. And then of course you've got your natural colours as well. But yeah, no variegated I saw, but solids, merles, mottles and tweedies. Before I went to Norway, I'd searched the myths, the legends of these other wool brands that you just can't get in the UK. And well, Norway's full of them. I've not been to, I do plan to Sweden, Denmark, and to see if these brands are there, whether it's just exclusive to Norway, but I could understand why, because the factories are very old, thus small, and they're not made for kind of worldwide domination, but it just makes it all the more special because you can pretty much just get it there. The main brand, if you like, or in my opinion, was Hillesvåg. That is in Bergen. Okay, and it's like 110 years old and still going. One of the brothers who owns it, he did a talk when we were there at the factory, and I'll save that for another video. Yeah, absolutely lovely family run business. Employs a lot of people. So this is what, yeah, these are all Hillesvåg. Let me see if I have another for you. There we go. This is, yeah, the Ask. So all Hillesvåg, but then they have the different names of what they are. So there's Fjell, Tinder, and Ask. All beautiful. So I mean, that is a solid colour. Okay, mottled and that twisted. So that's one of the main brands. And then another, which I saw as kind of one of the main brands, is Sadness Gone. It's all on the website. I'll put a link to the blog from my last video that does kind of link everything. This is their merino wool. So the merino wool, and then this one's Peer Gynt, that's the tweed version, or the not so tweed version. Okay, so that was another main brand I saw, and then they did have other bits of kind of Peruvian. This seems to, or it's at least Peruvian spun. I think it might be in Denmark when I looked, the actual owned by Du Store Alpaca House of Yarn, and it's the Sturk. Okay, they had Rowan as well, because there's, you know, a lot of flagship stores. What are the other? They did imported brands. So one I'd never heard of. You probably know. Comment. It was just very expensive in French, is what I remember. I didn't bring any back, but it was beautiful. Drops as well. One place did, but we get that in the UK. So they're the two main brands: the Sadness Gone and Hillesvåg. You will also find these absolutely every single shop. So don't worry if you don't get something from one shop, you will find these brands. My next category I thought I'd talk about is shapes, the shape of the wool, which may sound bizarre, but I thought I'd mention it because not everyone likes to wind wool. So the brand Hillesvåg, everything is in a hank, okay? And that you will need to wind off, etc. Other ones, Sadness Gone, that's always in a ball, okay? So that's great if you don't want to, or you're on holiday, you want to start knitting something. It's going to be difficult unless you have a willing chair or pair of hands and lots of time to start winding these into balls. So these already come in balls, and then just the other shapes, we've got, what are these actually called? Is it a donut or something? That's a nice flat one. And let me see, this I like. Is this, yeah, like a skein. I think this is lovely. Okay, so just be mindful of that. The Hillesvåg brand will always be hanks, and then other ones do come in balls and different shapes as well. Cost is my next category, and I'm sure you're all eager to hear about this. Everything in Norway is very expensive. Luckily I brought more than one pair, and I'm not like this, but I managed to lose gloves, thankfully not ones I'd knitted, on the first day. I don't even know how. I think I left them in a hotel, which isn't like me. And you look in shops and it's 50 quid a time for a pair of gloves. They probably haven't knitted it ever, but you know, that you couldn't get anything else. So everything in Norway is expensive. Yeah, I paid £5 for a dime bar. I still haven't quite recovered. That was a how much moment. But wool is great price. I think just because whether it's so abundant or whether it's just popular, production is cheaper. It's really cheap. Yay. Okay. So these Peer Gynt, okay, the Sadness Gone, they equated to, I think, around £2.50 when converted. So that's really great. And then you go into the till with all these, but it's like, it's not costing that much, I promise. Usually I'd pay £50 to £60 to make a jumper. And to give you an idea, then in Norway, it costs maybe around 35, 40 to make, well, this is one that I made from Hillsvarg wool. So I think that's brilliant, and because over here in the UK it's not encouraging people to use wool, to access, you know, more sustainable choices. Therefore, I was really glad to see that the prices were affordable for everyone. It was bizarre. Some of them, I can't remember if they're actually cheaper than the UK or I just told myself and my mum that. So, yeah, take it with a pinch of salt, but generally I did find they were cheaper. Sometimes mentally it catches you out because then when they come in 50 grams, you think, oh, that's really cheap, but then you have to double it, I suppose. I guess the advantage is you don't end up with, you know, half a ball left over that you've, you know, paid for maybe up to £5 for then if it's, you know, Rowan West Yorkshire Spinners. For that there was, let me get it out for you, some very spenny wool. Okay, I got 2 of these. This is Lofoten wool. Okay, she came on the boat, but I think, yeah, she's been on Ernie and Carlos's YouTube and things like that. And it's from, well, she said it was from Happy Sheep that have this really unique fleece because where they graze there's salt water that alters the fleece and it's naturally dyed, and it was £40 and I got 2 of them. I would never ever pay that in the UK, regardless of, you know, if I had glitter and gold on it, I just wouldn't. But yeah, it's unique, and what I'll make will be a memento of the holiday because it was such a special holiday and hopefully very nice to knit with. I hope it's the best thing I've ever knitted with in my life. Yeah, I picked kind of the smallest garment. I'm going to make a tank top and it needed 2. But yeah, some people there were buying like loads. But, you know, if that's what you want and you've had in mind, I had other bits and bobs in mind and jumpers. Tackling austerity in the UK by keeping warm, that's how I see it. Generally affordable, I found, and then you've got these bad boys, but they're special. My next point is the weights of the wool, and by weights I mean thickness. Okay, so they seem to be mostly in what I'd call US weights. Okay, in the UK we'd have 4-ply, double knit, Aran, chunky, oh gosh, I'm testing myself here, super chunky. But then what I seem to find things were, but there's all the symbols, it's dead easy to read. So this is 3.5mm needles. So this would be like a sport weight. So yeah, you've got your fingering, sport, worsted weights. But then I found some that the needle measurements does kind of cross over. So I thought it was a good shopping experience. So I could get wool for patterns that were more US or continental, and then I could also adapt it to UK patterns because some of the wools, let's see here, yes, this one, it's 3.5 to 4mm, so it could be, you know, sport and DK weight. So yeah, I really like that. You've got all the choice, literally all the choice in the world. It's amazing. Next up is samples. The shops just have the most beautiful samples, like rails of them. There's so many, from adults to children's garments. I found that super inspirational. Sometimes that's a bad thing when you've got your bank card out. Yeah, not always good. But yeah, it's just nice to have a touchy feel, isn't it? And feel the wools as well, because they are very different to what I've experienced in the UK. That was a good opportunity to see them knitted up. And also they're just works of art, the fur owl, they're absolutely beautiful. Next up, I wanted to talk to you about shops. So you do have your independent ones, they're absolutely brilliant, go to those. And then you do have kind of main high street, if you want to call them, shops as well. The first one I'll talk about is Husfliden. They have these in, well, I went to kind of cities and major towns, so they definitely have them in all of those places. You might not think it's a wool shop at first because they sell parts of the bunad or traditional Norwegian folk costumes, but then in every one there's just a massive wall of wool, that's hard to say, a massive wall of wool and haberdashery. So absolutely amazing. So look out for Husfliden. Then they'll all have a different word after. So I think the one in Oslo's Husfliden Glashausen. That's in the shopping centre, in the basement. I just kept going around like I could not find this, and I'm showing all the workers like pictures of wool because I didn't know what it was in Norwegian. But yeah, eventually got directed to the basement, and Absolutely fantastic. So Husfliden is the one to look out for, and you can't miss it. There's boonads in the window and things, and they're in every kind of major town city. Also, what I stumbled upon by accident, it wasn't on my pre-prepared list. It was absolutely great. It was called, I think it's a play on words and in Norwegian, so I'm going to butcher it. It was kind of Panda Rano or Panda Dano, something like that. I think panda was the play on words in it. And that reminded me of a hobbycraft, but kind of cuter and nicer. So you had all the like chunky beads for like kids making bead things that I just so wanted to get, but I held on. They've got miniatures as well, for dolls' houses, bits of kind of DIY hobbyists with wood and whatever people do in their garages, little hinges and things. And there was also a wool wall. It didn't strike me as kind of specialist, and there was none of this stuff. But yeah, there were certainly kind of big cakes of cotton and things like that. If you wanted cotton, I'd probably go there because you don't see it as much in the other stores. Other cracking wool shop, Fru Kvist, in, which I think's Mrs. Kvist in translated, that's Oslo. Yeah, that's probably, if I went, well, if I think about Norway every day, so I probably will go back. That's the one I'd be off the plane heading to. There was so much wool that was lovely, but I didn't have a project in mind, and they had like a posh bit and just a wall of sock wool. But then it was like, I was talking about the colours before, like solid cobalt blues and bright oranges, and yeah, absolutely incredible. And Bergen at the train station is a wool shop. I mean, that tells you everything you need to know about Norway, really. So there's that. And then in Bergen, where I went, there's the Hillsvåg, this wool factory, where, I mean, I took a little video, and it's just, one woman had to sit down with sensory overload. Like, it genuinely is just every difference, this in every single colour you could ever imagine, then this in every single colour times about 30 or whatever. Yeah, need a breather.
It's like buying a camp hat. It was Luffy's daughters that said, "Oh, you're at knitting camp." So now we call ourselves a knitting camp.
Finally, there is a couple of extras that I believe are worth mentioning. First of all, yes, wool, lovely and cheap or affordable, but haberdashery not so much. So I got, I think it was 6 or 7 buttons. They were, I mean, maybe they were like proper metal, you know, like the traditional ones for a cardigan, and that was 180 krona for what, 7? So maybe about £16 in the UK, which is by me for buttons. So yeah, that was expensive. Next up is money saving. I'm so excited just thinking about it. I wish I lived there so much. Oslo Husfliden. I got to the till with, you know, all my wool, and then I got some free because they did like a loyalty scheme where I think for every 9 balls or every 10, then you get one free, which obviously wasn't very difficult if you've seen my previous video of all the wool I brought back. Yeah, and they also did a thing which I wish we did in the UK. If you bought too much and didn't break into it, then they'd refund it. I mean, that's just great. How much money have we wasted buying, you know, more wool so we don't run out and ruin the project, but then you're kind of stuck with all these odd ones and end up with just loads of hats or mittens or whatever. So yeah, that was fantastic. The next one, I did not know about this until halfway through the holiday, but then decided not to go ahead with it, and I'll explain why. So there's a thing where you can get the tax back at the airport for your purchases. Not just wool, anything you buy. So, you know, the fellas have bought things as well. How it works, you ask for a certain form at the shop, they know what they're doing, they fill it out and, you know, do the percentage of tax, what you've paid. Then at the airport, You can, see, this is probably why I didn't do it. You can go and hand these pieces of paper and forms in. I think you can do it online as well. And you get the added on tax money back. So some people were getting like $200 or whatever in return. I didn't do it because I found out that you have to, if they ask, be able to present what you've purchased. And obviously that's great because most people don't bring back 8 kilograms of wool. But I'm not most people. So yeah, I thought that's going to be a disaster and nightmare, and it was already on the plane checked in anyway. And I didn't want to, be carrying too much through the airport. That's why I didn't do it. But yeah, that's certainly one to bear in mind for next time I go and have a much more controlled and sensible trip. This one sounds like a silly one, but it's actually important. So the shops are lovely and warm. I went in February, bearing in mind the heating's on, obviously in the UK with austerity measures at the minute. It's not too warm in any houses or building shops you go in. That was absolutely lovely experience. It was so lovely and warm. But outside it was -1 and snowing. I had all the thermals and woolen knits on in the world, and then you go in the shops. Honestly, you feel sick, like genuinely, and this is across the whole of Norway. Yeah, there's, I've got all my layers in my bag that I've taken off, but yeah, you just kind of feel sick. So it is hard to pack and wear things if you're going in and out in Oslo. If you're going in for kind of a dedicated and long time in the wool shop, then yeah, take all your layers off, go to a toilet, whatever. But if you're kind of just flicking in and out of shops having a look, then yeah, you're just gonna have to handle being too warm. Honestly, it was like being in my grandma's. It was subtropical, and yeah, I felt sick. But it's nice to be warm. Next up is the opening hours. I found this the most bizarre thing ever. So I landed in Oslo on Saturday, and the kind of most of the shops, I'm not just on about wool shops, they closed at like 4 or 5 o'clock, which I find quite bizarre for a Saturday in a capital city. There was a shopping centre where in Strykkedia, there's a wool shop in the shopping centre because, it's Norway. Where I got this, and that was open till 10 p.m. So you've got, I planned it as going to them in kind of reverse order of when they closed. So Frukvist, where I got that, they closed at 4 p.m. on a Saturday, which you'd think that would be your latest opening. But then in the week, places open till quite late, like 8 o'clock, and again, not just for wool shops, which I find bizarre. Like, no one's doing anything in the UK in the week. We're all work, tea and bed. Yeah, I found that quite bizarre. And on Mondays, Sundays, you can forget it. Nothing but McDonald's opens. Genuinely nothing but McDonald's opens. And shops tend to open later on. So when we were in Alisund, it was 11 o'clock before anything opened. So we're just there wandering around this ghost town, like, should we be here? Are people, at the curtains looking at us like, what are they doing out at this time? Yeah, and that goes for kind of all shops really, not just wool ones. So yeah, to summarise, Saturday, most closed earlier than you'd imagine. And everything closed Sunday, Monday. Weekends, no, we've done weekends. Midweek, open later, close later. However, the Spirit of Norway shop at Bergen train station, that opens till like 8 o'clock. So last day, I was there, that was good. Finally, I thought I'd wrap this up by, I'm sure you've been wondering and wanting me to mention, how on earth did I take all this wool home? Okay. I did tightly pack it all in my suitcase, and it was incredibly heavy. I'd also taken a spare bag that goes over the suitcase and had it as an extra handbag from the plane I flew with Ryanair. If you're familiar with that, you'll know about their regulations. But yeah, obviously I filled that by the first day. excuse me, and I wasn't the only one. Everyone was having a bit of a panic on. So last day then in Bergen, and obviously we're having to get round before the shops closed. People were there, like going to suitcase shops and everything, but I didn't want to spend the money on a suitcase. But I had tried to previously have a little search online, which is difficult when everything's in Norwegian. And I came up with the idea of a laundry bag because it's, you know, flexible, flimsy, but has a zip on. And that was a cracking idea, if I say so myself. I did actually decide to check that in whilst I was waiting for the bus to the airport in the morning, because my shoulders were killing. I'd nearly broken my thumb on it, genuinely. And yeah, I didn't want to be any more sweaty and flustered. So I did pay £26 to just check that in. And I'm glad, because the plane was absolutely full. We needed to take off like pronto. And I don't think, even though it was within the measurements, I don't think it would have gone up there because the wool kind of expanded it quite a bit. And I still had that laundry bag. Obviously, I've squirreled away more craft things in it that don't count. So yeah, I mean, all the best plans. And I genuinely do, you know, plan things and plan the fun out of them, to be honest. But no, I just couldn't foresee how great the wool would be and how much. And as you can tell, it just makes me smile, and I've really enjoyed going through it all again for you. And I will certainly be diving in and doing some more projects. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did too and want to know more about the Ernie and Carlos cruise or knitting in Norway, then let me know in the comments, and please do like, subscribe, all that good stuff, because it genuinely does help us. Thank you and take care.